While helping Idea and Melope with some book carrying in the Temple of Wind, Aerie comes across a document written by the previous Wind Vestal, Borea. Both Idea and Melope are shocked by this, as all of Borea's work was confiscated before Idea came to fill the position. The document refers to a 99th hidden room, which Melope suggests Borea used to avoid work regularly, much like Idea does. Since Idea has to stay while the book carrying is being done, the duo head out to check out the place. When they arrive at the location of the hideout, some mysterious soldiers are already looting the cave. A battle ensues, and during the scuffle, Aerie fights over a book with one of the soldiers until it tears, leaving each side with one half of the book. Afterwards, they take off. Returning to Idea, she skims through the document, but can barely understand what it's about. Borea was supposedly a scholar before she was a Vestal, so Melope suggests that it may be her research notes. Idea then reaches a section on considerations on fluctuations in space-time, and it makes note of the infamous space-time compass. Idea wonders why Borea knows of this. Iglia invites the duo out into the forest, where they are attacked by demon beasts. Once victorious, they hear Iglia's voice from above, on board the Serra Menage, Crystallica's largest, and only, flying restaurant reserved for VIPs. As they wait for the food to arrive, Aerie asks why they had to meet in the middle of the forest. Iglia said that it was to ensure no one would want to follow, and then announces that someone is here to meet them. Pope Ivy Beth joins them at the table, scolding Iglia for being too brash yet again with her approach, and has dinner with the group. She states how it feels good to eat with others. Eating alone all the time has made her forget that she was human too occasionally. She also states that being on a pillar, like her job requires, does that to someone, and that though Idea's previous actions hurt her, she knew that giving her command at that time was the right move because Ivy Beth herself could not act. Lilia has recently been on an artistic fervor, painting on the walls of the Temple of Earth. Her art is a little mortifying, and if not fixed soon, people may mistake the temple for a place of dark intentions. Tagare sends the duo after the Artista, who can fix the place up. Upon finding a member of the Artista, Aaron, the duo find that she has been arrested by the Forestry Corps. Aaron was messing around and ruined a stone that was part of a warding spell to keep monsters out. In fact, she sculpted it into the shape of a monster, and the magic of the stone itself caused it to attract more monsters to the region. Aerie tells the Corps that they need Aaron, and the artist comes up with a solution. As Aerie and the player defend Aaron from demon beasts, she sculpts a new statue, one of a hunter to protect the woods, that she names Goddess of Tomahawk. It seems to keep the beasts away, but Melosa points out something at its feet: pancakes. Aaron explains that she based the statue on an old legend, and apparently pancakes were a favorite of this hunter. Mika, the leader of Artista, approaches the duo afterwards and apologizes for Aaron causing trouble, and thanks them for their assistance. Aerie then asks where she could find Rosanna, and Mika says that she hasn't seen her companion in about a month since Rosanna tends to travel around. She does say that Rosanna doesn't travel that far, so Aerie suggests they look around the city. In town, the group stops at a restaurant where the food is fantastic. Rosanna suddenly comes around the bar, and Mika asks why she's working there. Vega appears and explains that Rosanna came a little while ago and ate way more than she could pay off, so she's been working to pay off her tab. Mika offers to pay the bill, but Vega has an alternate solution. She's had trouble getting her hands on Galband bonitos. The duo head out to sea to catch some, fending off an aquatic monster in the process. With Rosanna and Aaron in tow, the duo takes them to the Temple of Earth to redesign the temple. Unfortunately for Tagare, the two artists love Lilia's work, and the three quickly become fast friends over their love for art. Bumping into the mysterious man, Aerie thanks him for his previous help with the ball threat. He says it was no problem and that the fight was beneficial for him too. Aerie then says the duo are to help him anytime he needs, and the man mentions that he can't seem to find his companion, so Aerie offers to help find him. While searching, the duo comes across De Rosa, who seems to be fighting the city guard. When they approach, De Rosa explains that he wasn't fighting the guard, but rather they were protecting him from two other attackers, Mitsuru and Hull, who summoned Shikioni to fight for them. After fending them off, Hull calls for retreat to Mitsuru's protest since they hadn't completed the order. Eri demands to know who sent them, but the two take off. Going back to the mysterious man, he seems to have found his comrade. He then laughs and states that Eri reminds the man of his younger brother, who he will never see again. As they depart, De Rosa approaches the man and suggests he invites Eri and the player to his group. The man replies that the idea is encouraging, but that he'd like to avoid getting them involved if possible, as he doesn't want to repeat his mistakes. Curie has heard that the duo paid a visit to Saramage, and desperately wants to try one of their desserts, the Starry Sky Jelly. While Eri admits to not knowing the path of the flying restaurant, Curie suggests looking for a supplier on the ground, since Saramage only uses the freshest of ingredients. On a port, Eri finds Yoon, a Saramage worker, speaking with a fish seller. When the situation is explained, he is more than happy to prepare the Starry Sky Jelly for the water vessel, but he needs help obtaining the ingredients. Leading the duo to a swamp, the three find a demon beast and slay it. Afterwards, Yoon collects the beast's mucus, the main ingredient of the jelly that gives it its texture. Once prepared, Eri delivers it to Curie, who absolutely loves it. She asks what goes into it, but Eri plays it off as being a secret. As the duo arrive at the Temple of Fire, Iglia questions them about what they recently found: Borea Mayor Oblige's documents. Eri says they have no idea, and that Idea is still analyzing them. She then asks Iglia what Borea was like. Iglia reveals that she was once in the position of Akira, like Seleno now, and that at the time, Iglia regarded Borea like another sister. She has gone missing, and it's still treated as much officially, but Iglia says that in reality, she is de facto dead. Iglia also says that Borea left her with a question the last time they met, 3 months prior. Don't you ever feel uncomfortable in this world? Suddenly, there's a loud racket heard in another part of the temple, and the three investigate. They find Jiu, a member of Artista, being held at sword point by Ziz, part of the Rei Daoshi. Jiu was hired to do a mural for the temple and wanted to use Ziz as her model, but Ziz refuses. Iglia offers to stand in for Ziz, but Jiu says that she is too old. Ziz then states that if Jiu is really serious, then she must bring her a water crystal from the temple's basement, where monsters dwell. The duo go along with Jiu, but lose her suddenly in the maze of the basement. As they try to find her, they come across a mysterious woman, who doesn't speak. Instead, she merely points in one direction, which the duo follows to the underground lake, where Jiu and the crystal are. A demon beast attacks, it is slain, and the three return above with the crystal. Ziz is shocked about them returning with the crystal, but she cannot touch it. Iglia explains that it is because water crystals, or crystal tears, cannot be touched by those who speak falsely. Ziz then admits that the reason she refused to be the model is because she thought she would have to pose naked. Jiu explains that it's done sometimes, but wouldn't be necessary for this job. Ziz is relieved, and then reveals that she was told that lie by De Rosa. A meeting is being held between Roanne, Ivy Beth, and an unknown third party. They are discussing how Idea has her hands on half of Borea's documents, and the other half are in the hands of that man. Roanne asks why Ivy Beth couldn't find them earlier after Borea's disappearance, and Ivy Beth says she couldn't do it thoroughly because of how sudden the event was. Ivy Beth then suggests that this was Borea's plan, since she apparently even knew the reason behind the world. Roanne is confused, so Ivy Beth whispers something to her, which upsets the unknown person. Both apologize for their actions, and then are given an unknown order from the elusive figure. Maya calls for the duo to deliver a message to Idea that the Archbishop wants to see her, on unofficial terms. Arriving at the Temple of Wind, Eri finds Idea and Melope both drunk off their faces. The temple had received a very large donation of sake recently, and they weren't getting through it, so the two had taken to drinking some. Eri tells Idea that the Archbishop wants to see her, and drags her out of the temple. On the way there, Idea is very hungover, and realizes that she had forgotten her sword, which is throwing off her balance. They all go back to retrieve the sword, but inside the temple they encounter a group of thieves. Combat ensues and the thieves retreat, with the names Charlo and Enric being revealed among the group as they run. Making her way back to the main temple, Edea arrives to meet with Roanne, who wishes to drink a luxury sake with her. Artista member Philine has drunken herself into a stupor over not having access to the right paint to finish painting a shrouded sculpture. Eri offers to go get the rare material to make the paint. Coming across the black stone needed, Eri tries to pick it up only for the attached golem to come to life and attack. Afterwards, Alternus appears and offers to help carry the heavy stone, as it appears to be the will of his goddess Edea. When Philine is given the material, she lightens up immediately and offers to show everyone the sculpture as it currently is. When the cover is lifted, they are all surprised at the female figure it depicts. Philine claims it is based on a painting in one of the temple's treasure houses, and Alternus recognizes it as Agnes. Alternus wants to meet with the duo alone on an abandoned island called Toshika. He asks them how much they know about Edea before elaborating on how she was not summoned to Crystallica and instead traveled from the past 200 years ago to find a girl named Agnes. To prove themselves worthy of knowing the truth, Alternus battles the duo. Once the battle ends, Alternus asks about Boria's document and if it mentioned the space-time compass. When confirmed by Eri, Alternus explains that 200 years prior, a man used the compass to take himself and Agnes into the future, into their current time. This reveal means that Praying Brage fits within the canon of Bravely Default. As this scene confirms, it is the continuation of the universe we witness in Chapter 4 of Bravely Second, the End Layer, a world overrun by the Ball. Because there is only one compass, Edea became ruthless in her search for a way to find Agnes afterwards. She succeeded her father as Grand Marshal, and through world conquest, she achieved the unification of all of Luxendark. Without gathering all the power in the world, Edea never would have achieved time travel. Alternus also explains that Edea inflicted great pain upon herself, traveling across the world and doing battle with great beasts and demons parallel in power to gods, all alone. He speculates that it was likely self-punishment for her actions as a tyrant. Eri then states that they still haven't found a clue to finding Agnes, but Alternus interjects and states that they have met Agnes. She was the mysterious woman the duo encountered in the underground maze while searching for the crystal tear. Alternus then states that perhaps it has started to move, and when Eri asks for clarification, he says he wants to show them something instead. Alternus leads them to a graveyard which had existed on Luxendark before the catastrophe. He recounts how this is where they all met. He tells them that Edea doesn't seem to believe she deserves to go back to her era, but he wants the duo's help in finding a way to get home, to which Eri agrees. Seleno wants the duo to go check on the Magic Research Institute, where they are currently working to replicate the power of the copy Magnolia to try and use it to clear out the Demon Kings on Luxendark's surface so they can return to the ground. Seleno also warns that a new anti-temple group seems to have arisen, and to be careful. Arriving there, the building has been attacked by the very same group Seleno warned of. The duo fend off an attack from Grain, Shannon, and Manon, who appear to be focused not just on fighting, but killing outright, a possible sign that they are an assassin group. Once they retreat, the mysterious man appears, yelling for everyone to get out of the Institute. Shortly after, a bomb explodes. Eri hopes that the man is not involved with the anti-temple group. Later, Ivy Beth is meeting with Seleno about the recent bombing. Ivy Beth refers to the group behind the bombing as Secret Killer and states how cunning they are. She also reveals that she was likely the one that sent the sake to Edea previously. Michelle, a server at Saramange, has been stalked recently by some people. Eri works with the Aoi no Otome to catch them. It turns out to be a group of martial artists known as the Rei Daoshi, Lid, Hyrin, and Tao, who were hoping to learn a lost martial art from Michelle that he learned so he could cut desserts more perfectly. Caillou, another member of the Rei Daoshi, is being stalked by someone. At Curie's request, and with the Flower Knight's help, it is eventually found to be Laker and Ludmilla from the Saramange, who want Caillou's technique in medicinal foods. As an apology, they later send Curie a bonito served with a sauce using the herbs they learned about from Caillou. Dione wishes for the duo to look for a person she used to know from a group known as the Three Wise Men of the Abyss. She gives them a portrait to work with and suggests checking around the Luland forest. As the two search, they come across Jay. When Aerie asks how he survived, Jay can't answer before DeRosa, Holly White, Kint, and the mysterious man all appear. The mysterious man reveals himself, finally, to be Kaiser Oblivion, and that he is the leader of the new anti-orthodoxy group, his new Glance Empire. Oblivion explains that the ball was suppressing a second personality in Jay, and when it died, that second person came to the surface. Aerie also recognizes that Oblivion wields the martial asterisk, aka the Kaiser, and after Oblivion offers them the chance to join his empire, they leave. Returning to Dione and keeping the Glance Empire's rebirth a secret, she shows another portrait that has her standing as one of the Three Wise Men more than 100 years ago. The person in the middle is Jean Carpentier, but the one on the right is Frank Georges, the man responsible for the summoning system, and he looks exactly like Jay. Edea receives a letter from Oblivion and demands to know just how long the duo has known about the Kaiser being in Crystallica. Aerie explains that he only just reveals his identity to us, but then asks how she knows him. Edea states that Oblivion is the man whose actions were the catalyst for the catastrophe, and that he kidnapped Agnes. Edea plans to accept the letter's invitation to meet at the Serra Mange because he's the last man who would know where Agnes is, and wants the duo to accompany her. She also says that she doesn't know if she can keep her calm, and she may just cut the Kaiser down on sight. On board the Serra Mange, the three pass the Artista and the Rei Dao Shi, who are eating, before reaching Oblivion's table. Edea cuts to the chase and demands to know where Agnes is. Oblivion tells her to forget the past instead, and to live better in this era. He then extends an invitation to join the Glance Empire and help move the needle of time, which she declines angrily. She goes to draw her sword, but then all patrons and workers on board turn against her. They have joined with Oblivion. Before they can capture the party, an airship approaches and Alternus hops onto the Serra Mange. Edea and the duo fight off the patrons to escape on the airship, while Alternus holds off the Kaiser. Once safe, Edea wants to go save Alternus, and Aerie suggests they go visit her father for help. When they arrive, Brave says that Alternus made it back safe and claimed he fell off a cliff, but he also lost his helmet, and so he doesn't want to show his face. Aerie wants to get him a gift of sympathy, and Kamizumi suggests they find a mirage melon in the Nomokeda Mountains, which used to be part of Eternia. The duo finds one, fighting off a bird-formed demon beast, and delivers it back to Brave. Going back to Edea, Aerie gives her half of the mirage melon, as Alternus requested. Edea is pleased since Alternus would bring her melons when she was sick as a kid. Melope sends the duo to Flora's house to pick up the analyzed document of Boreas. It was given to Flora to study because its contents were too complex for them to study, considering Borea was a scholar, a Vestal, a crystal officer, and a time mage. It appears Borea was researching multi-dimensional worlds, as well as exploring the concepts of gods and devils, even though she already had proof of the devils. Borea was also aware of how to defeat said devils by focusing their existence into one world so that the concept of destruction sticks to them, and apparently by defining one's position in multiple dimensions, one could obscure the concept of time. The rest of the document makes reference to the other half, which was stolen, so that is all that could be determined at this time. There is also reference to other volumes, which means there's more of Borea's research out there. An emergency meeting is held between the four Vestals, the Pope, and the Archbishop, with Edea taking the position that dealing with Oblivion is of the utmost importance and should be taken as seriously as the emergence of the ball. The others do not seem to take it as seriously as Edea wishes they would, though they are still cautious of Oblivion's actions. Ivybeth tells them all to keep an eye out and report any information. Maya then approaches Aerie and the player, informing them that the Archbishop wishes to see them. Upon meeting with Roanne, she wishes for them to tell her what they think of Oblivion. Aerie states that she also doesn't believe he's a destroyer of the world, but that his group is definitely willing to harm the Crystal Orthodoxy. When Aerie mentions his desire to move the needle of time, however, this catches Roanne's attention, although she does not elaborate. As they leave the meeting while traveling down a road, the duo come across a merchant being attacked by thieves. After fighting them off, Kint appears and puts out a fire set on the merchant's carriage as the thieves were retreating. Kint explains he is here on the Kaiser's orders to defend the outer towns and their people, since the guards have pulled back towards the main temple and do not patrol as often or as far out as they used to, simply to protect the orthodoxy. Iglia calls on the duo to ask how their progress with finding Boria's works have been. When Aerie tells her that they haven't found any others, the Fire Vestal informs them that Boria's ancestors came from the Eisenberg region of Luxendark, and that a segment of that region, one which contained the former Mount Karka, has risen to Crystallica. Reaching the island, the duo are confronted by Charlo and Enric again, who attack them. After the battle, Aerie begins to collapse, and the secret killer assassins explain that it is the toxic fumes of the volcano that have incapacitated her, while they were already controlling their breathing. Before they can finish her though, Holly White appears with Arrow to blow away the fumes, and Esuna to detoxify Aerie. The assassins take off. Holly then says that Oblivion sent her, and that there was something in the former Temple of Fire that he wanted them to have. Returning to Edea, the duo gives her another volume of Boria's work, but they learn that there are still 2 more out there. Edea also recounts her time in the Eisenberg region, where she traveled with Agnes and 2 others. She then corrects herself and says 3 others, seeming to forget about Aerie. Edea begins recruiting tons of people to prepare in case of an invasion from the Glan's Empire. However, her selection criteria is very broad. Edea just allows anyone and everyone to join. To test their strength, however, she pits all the new recruits against the duo, who of course win. Edea is surprised, however, by the hat maker Cyrus being the strongest one of the bunch. When Melope returns to the temple, she states that a signboard was thrown away outside that read, "The First Windren Weirdo Tournament Audition Venue." Edea pretends to have not seen it. Edea sends the duo to ask Curie if she knows anything about the location of Boria's works. She suggests they try the ruins of Florum, since Boria would visit there often. While there, the two come across Barris Lair training the Rei Daoshi, with Jackal being dragged into the training. Returning back to Curie, Aerie shows that she found another document in the ruins of the Florum altar, but then wonders why Oblivion would want them to find the documents. Curie suggests that it may be by Boria's will that they find them. Praline a la mode's idol group, Pretty Cakes, is worried about her after she has disappeared on them, seeming to have left the group to dissolve on its own. Aerie offers to go looking for her, since she's so loud it's hard not to find her. Eventually, they are attacked by demon beasts, where De Rosa suddenly appears and helps out using poison on the monsters. Later, they find Praline, who won't give a straight answer why she left them. Eventually, she reveals she thought she could go alone, but in reality, she hates being away from her friends. When De Rosa steps forward, Praline calls him Producer and claims that he convinced her to join the Glan's Empire, the thing she wanted to do alone. The duo meet with Jian, another of the 3 wise men, to talk about Jay. Instead, she is not at liberty to answer, but tells them to ask him themselves. She calls for Jay to come out, sensing him through his magic. He asks for them to call him Georges, since he no longer has the personality of Jay. Georges explains that, for some reason, his original self deemed it necessary to create a copy, and so he set to work on making a complete replica, complete with all of his memories and knowledge. With the help of his disciples, after Georges' death, Jay was created. Before Aerie can get an answer as to why Georges has sided with Oblivion, they are interrupted by the mage Thantum, a member of the snake-crested Rovos party who once served the Duke of Gelug. Defeating him, Georges goes on to ask Jian if she would join the Glan's Empire. She declines, as she also did to the Church 100 years ago. Aerie then asks what Oblivion's plan is, and why he is leading them to Boria's works, to which Georges says to follow to the end, and then a door to truth would be opened. The duo go to ask Lilia about Boria, But unfortunately, the missing Vestal only visited Lilia on important matters, not really hanging around Petrania otherwise. However, Lilia does point out that all Vestals who kept a second surname typically were of royal bloodlines: Adia Lee Oblige, Lilia de Rosso Oblige, and Borea Mayer Oblige. Before Lilia will reveal which royalty she believes Borea belonged to, however, she wants something in return. VIP tickets to a special event happening soon in Crystallica, which will have many dancers and singers performing. The duo wait in line for a whole day and night to purchase the tickets, only for people like Schwartz to push to the front, buy the tickets, and then hold them hostage for resale at exorbitant prices. Aerie beats up the ticket scalpers, and the customers thank her. When Aerie goes to buy a ticket, however, she finds Yon of the Serra Mange at the desk, who explains that the event is being hosted by the Glands Empire for the sake of the people. And VIP tickets come with a towel with their logo on it. Delivering the ticket to Lilia, she tells them that the king of Kaldisla had appointed Borea as lieutenant governor of Reconstruction, and to ask Idia for more info. Learning about the concert being sponsored by the Glands Empire, Idia plans to hold a counter-concert. She wishes to hire the Crystal Orchestra, but though they agree to it, their instruments are in maintenance and the craftsman only likes to work when he feels like it, though he is susceptible to sweets as a bribe. Aerie receives a sweet called Mame Dai Fuku, and the craftsman accepts, hurrying the repair time. Arya also states that the new song the orchestra wants to perform is still being written by another stubborn person, Baron. He claims he can't find inspiration and won't write anything. His servant Dante says there is a number of the Blanca corpse that Baron will do anything for when told to. Apparently, she reminds him of someone he once knew and respected or loved greatly. So the duo goes off to hunt down said member on the front lines. Bringing Cornelia back to Baron, she tells him to get to work, and he does. Since Pretty Cakes is the main act of the Empire's concert, Idia wants something similar. She wants to get the three Venus sisters involved, but upon asking, Einherja flat out refuses. To learn the reason, she demands a battle with her sisters, and Ominous, who was just passing by. Afterwards, Aerie gets Einherja to sing, but it is so deafening that it knocks out most of the people who listen to it. Returning to the temple with Idia, she finally remembers that Einherja sang for her birthday once, and it knocked out Idia and Kamiizumi, leaving her with no memory of the event. Idia finally comes up with a solution to combat Pretty Cakes, getting Seleno to sing instead. They approach her with the idea, and though she would agree, as a crystal officer, she is incredibly busy and needs a good reason to leave her post to do this. She proposes that if the duo can defeat all of the crystal officers as proof of their commitment, then they may be able to help. After a grueling combat, Seleno accepts, and also gets the rest of the crystal officers on board with performing. Seleno's microphone has broken, and it is one of a kind. The person who could have repaired it passed away a while ago, but before all hope is lost, Kikyo appears with a letter from Kamiizumi, saying he knows someone who could fix it. The duo go to meet him and find Oblivion and Calmer. Oblivion offers Calmer's services as he is a mechanical genius, and he also wishes to mass-produce the microphone afterward. Aerie asks why Kamiizumi would invite them to meet with the Kaiser, and he states that Oblivion asked him to join the Empire, though he declined, due to Oblivion drawing his blade against Brave in the past. Calmer uncovers the issue with the microphone. A rare stone within has malfunctioned and needs replacing. Oblivion offers to travel with the duo in search of a replacement. As they walk, Aerie asks why Oblivion has been helping them, and he reveals that Borea took care of him when he first arrived in Crystallica from the past. With the stone acquired after defeating a golem, the three return and the microphone is repaired. Oblivion then suggests that the two groups hold their concert jointly, and let the people decide between the Orthodoxy and the Empire at once. When mentioned to Idia, she fully accepts, ready to crush the Kaiser at his own game. It's the day of the event. Aerie searches for Idia while the concert takes place, and finds Lilia enjoying herself fully. The Earth Vestal suggests they check the higher VIP seats. Up above, Idia and Oblivion are watching the show together. Oblivion states that he did not kill Alternus the other day, and also returns Idia's sword that she'd lost on the Serra Mange. She warns him that she may still attack him, and the Kaiser states that he is also armed, but that today is not the day for fighting. Once again, Edea demands to know where Agnes is, but before he can answer, the secret killer assassins appear, having fought their way past all the guards and attempt to kill Edea. Eri and the player arrive just in time to help fend them off, but after they flee again, Edea faints, succumbing to the assassin's poison. Just then, a mage named Mystica appears, a member of the Rovos party. She says that she is not with the other assassins and gives the group an antidote to the poison. Eri gives Edea the elixir and she stabilizes immediately. Mystica takes her leave but promises to return soon. Oblivion also leaves, but not before reminding Eri that Boria's documents will answer everything and that they already know where the last one lies. After the music festival, approval for the Orthodoxy and the Empire has increased equally. Edea and Eri discuss where the final document could be. Eri then brings up what Lilia said about Boria being the lieutenant governor of reconstruction in Kaldisla, and Edea remembers. Mayor was the last name of Egil, the canary boy they brought to Kaldisla and who served the king's guard, meaning Boria was his descendant. Edea tears up remembering the city and how it was where she first met with all of her friends. And Eri exclaims that Alternus brought them there previously, the island of Toshika. The duo make for Toshika, but are once again ambushed by secret killer members. But before combat can begin, the Rovos party also appears to back up Eri. The battle occurs, and Eri secures the remaining document, but falls victim to the poison. An unknown person can be heard saying that Edea makes them crazy, and that the wind that marks the end of the world has begun to blow. Eri awakens in the Temple of Wind. Edea assumes that Eri just collapsed upon returning from exhaustion, as there was no evidence of poisoning, but Eri definitely didn't make it back on her own. Either way, all the volumes of Boria's document were in their hands now, save for the missing half of one. Ivy, Beth, and Roanne have a meeting with Edea to discuss her recent behavior. Since she appeared to be getting along fine with Oblivion at the festival, they do not see her warnings as reasonable, and order her to only deal with her duties as Vestal for the time being. Unfortunately, Edea is still missing the other half of the first document, but Gandhar, one of the weirdo recruits, appears and says that he's meeting with someone who claims to have it. The duo go with him to the meeting place, supposedly taking the rest of the document with them. Gandhar then tries to steal it and hands it over to Praline, revealing the invitation was a setup. But Eri smirks and reveals it was too obvious from the beginning, revealing the document brought was actually just Melope's diary. Praline then accidentally reveals that it was the Rei Daoshi who stole the other half, and that the Kaiser is in possession of it. Now knowing that Oblivion has the last part of Boria's document, Edea plans a way to get onto the Saramage. Edea wants the duo to go to Yunohana in search of an ancient airship they could use. Upon arriving there, they encounter the 5 Wisdom Kings, who offer the key to the airship if they are defeated in battle. After beating them, they lead Eri to a bathhouse, where upon inserting the key into the foundation stones, the bathhouse begins to rise. Bringing it back to the Temple of Wind, Eri tells Edea that 200 years ago the bathhouse was apparently ran by a woman named Sakura, whom Edea recalls fondly. With the rub-a-dub ready, Edea and her subordinates, as well as the 5 Wisdom Kings, prepare to invade the Saramage. An aerial chase begins, and soon the Wind Vestal's forces have invaded the restaurant ship. Before any bloodshed occurs though, Oblivion makes an offer, each side sending a few representatives to fight for everyone, and both sides wagering all of their parts of Boria's document. Eri accepts, and Oblivion sends out 5 former members of the Duchy. At the end of the battle, Eri is poisoned again by De Rosso and captured. The 5 Wisdom Kings then hands the Kaiser the rest of Boria's documents. Oblivion tells the Wind Vestal soldiers to retreat and they will be spared, so they do so. Down in the warehouse on the Saramage, Eri is trapped with a strange man in a loincloth. He acts rather cool for his situation, and when asked about his attire, he states that it is the pinnacle of sexiness. He then states that they should escape, which won't be hard due to this being a restaurant and not a real prison. He points out a small hole that leads outside, and Eri goes through to unlock the door from the other side. The strange man then points out a parachute to use for escape, but claims he must stay for more research. He then says not to lose sight of it, no matter what happens, before taking off. Iglia has received information that Oblivion is headed for a small island, and she plans to bring her forces there, as she has orders from the Pope to subdue and capture him. Upon finding Oblivion and George, who are approaching Boria's resting place, Iglia calls for her forces to engage, but she is frozen in place upon seeing George's face. The two take off, and Iglia apologizes for failing to stop them, stating that upon seeing George, it was as though she remembered something important. Seleno has received intel that Oblivion is returning to the same island again, and sends the duo after him. Upon arrival, George summons the sword-bearing group known as Lion Dance to hold them off while he and Oblivion enter the temple. Beating Lion Dance and chasing the two, Oblivion reveals that they plan to resurrect Boria, who has the near-death knowledge they seek. And thus, Boria Mayor Oblige then returns to the world, and recalls how she was murdered by the secret killer group when they suddenly appear in the room. Boria's magic overwhelms the assassins, and she gives them the chance to leave, which they do. She also states that in the past, if the Crystal Orthodoxy didn't change its ways, then she was ready to destroy it. She then tells Aerie that she will be back soon before leaving. Aerie reports all this to Seleno, but when she goes to ask about the people who abducted and killed Boria, Seleno states she cannot answer. Aerie warns Curie of Boria's return, and Curie makes note of the church's movements once they knew all of Boria's documents had been secured. Aerie assumes this to mean that the Pope ordered Boria's death, but Curie rejects that, since it wouldn't make sense for Ivy Beth to send the duo and Secret Killer to the place of her resurrection at the same time. Sheena then appears and states that Boria and Oblivion are fighting their way into the Temple of Water. Aerie goes out to confront them, and Oblivion sets Artista upon them while they go inside. Boria confronts Curie after beating the Flower Knights, and says she came to scold her. She claims that Curie is ignoring the truth, and that is tantamount to sin. Curie asks if Boria really thinks she can destroy the new crystals, and the former Vestal says she will make Curie understand before incapacitating her. Now rushing to warn Lilia of Boria's approach, Lilia states that they never really got along super well. When Boria attacks, she takes a moment to speak with Eric, who was the descendant of a knight in the De Rosso household. The Rei Daoshi are sent to fight Aerie, who reveal that their master had noticed a disturbance in the stream of the world, but when the master was killed by the Rovos party, they decided to follow Oblivion. Boria approaches Lilia to show her the truth, but then Lester De Rosso appears to try and stop Oblivion. The Kaiser claims that it is a mortal sin to seal the future, but De Rosso retaliates by saying that you cannot neglect the present for the sake of the future. Boria calls for a retreat, not wishing to make Lester her enemy, and also notes that she has already completed what she wished to do there. As they leave, Lester and the duo rush to Lilia, who is unconscious. Lester then tells Aerie that if they lose sight of the world, to come find him. An attack is made against the Temple of Fire. The Saramange crashed right into the side of the building. Aerie finds the staff and battles them, then asks why they joined Oblivion. They state that the development of flying boats has been restricted, and by Orthodoxy decree, the progress of technology has been halted for 200 years, something they disagree with. Meanwhile, Iglia has encountered Oblivion, Boria, and George. Iglia still doesn't understand why she feels so strange towards George, and he states that he is not the George she loves. Boria then knocks Iglia unconscious as well. Boria arrives at the Temple of Wind and is greeted by those inside. Melope informs her that Edea wishes to meet with her. When they meet, Boria begins to explain the truth of the world to Edea. As Aerie attempts to catch up, she is stopped by the 5 Wisdom Kings, who serve to protect Boria. After beating them, the duo interrupts the Wind Vestals' meeting. Boria continues to explain that the world is ruled by a god. Where in crystalism the flow of the world is commanded by the crystals and given strength through prayer, Boria believes that there is a god trying to intervene and control that flow. Edea asks how Boria knew who she was, and she reveals that Egil passed down a message that Edea Lee would appear one day, and that his line is to help and protect her. Boria then states that Agnes is in the god's possession, and that the god resides within the Grand Temple. Boria and Oblivion now move against the Grand Temple. A massive battle ensues as they try to break through the temple's defenses, with both Georges and Dione summoning allies for their respective sides. Aerie arrives to intervene, and Georges summons a Gigas Lich and Chaugmar to fight them off. Finally breaking through, Borea and Oblivion enter the temple, where two mysterious people wait. The man whispers to himself for Edea and Agnes to wait for him. Roanne and Ivy Beth are having a meeting with their anonymous third party again, as Borea and Oblivion enter the temple. All non-combatants are evacuated, and only soldiers are allowed to stay to defend the inner sanctums. As the duo enter the temple, they encounter Ivy Beth, who tells them to leave. Aerie asks about the god in the temple, and Ivy Beth tells them that if they want to pass and witness the truth, they will have to defeat her and the Rovos party. She goes on to explain that in the past, the Duke of Gelig wished to end the Orthodoxy's rule, which would have put Crystallica into a state of feudalism. So, Ivy Beth painted the Rovos party as evil to prevent the feudal state, and also fought against the other 5 families vying for control of the Orthodoxy to maintain order. Her black clothes are her way of mourning for those she has killed. The Pope then removes her eye patch, a magic restraint device, and begins battle. In the end, the Pope is defeated and lets the duo pass. When Roanne finds her, she demands to know why she allowed them to pass. She then sends in Enric of Secret Killer to deal with the intruders. Heading deeper into the temple, the duo are met by Archbishop Roanne, and Aerie asks if she knew the truth about God. She states they are acting in defiance of God, and Aerie says that the way Crystallica was living was no better than livestock. Roanne says things would be peaceful if people just accepted the will of the god, but then there were those like Borea who disrupted that peace and had to be dealt with. The secret killer group then appears, revealing that it was Roanne who ordered Borea's assassination. The Archbishop then reveals the purpose of her post, to hunt down heretics who threaten the security of the Orthodoxy's power, as it has been since the days of the first Inquisitor, Juliana. Her white gown is her symbol of keeping the peace at any cost. A fight ensues. After defeating the secret killer group, they reveal that in the past they were starving orphans with nowhere to go, and that Roanne took them in. Aerie then uses this to illustrate that Roanne is guilty of disobeying God's will, since if things were left to their natural course, the orphans would have died on their own. Roanne is unable to respond as the duo marches on. Deep in the temple, an unknown voice speaks to a silent Agnes, its words unintelligible. Upon reaching the deepest part of the temple, Aerie finds a shadowy figure and Agnes trapped inside of a crystal. The shadow figure suddenly takes control of Oblivion and makes him fight the duo. After the battle, Aerie demands to know what the entity is. It identifies itself as the will that commands the world, and maintains the peace and survival of mankind. Oblivion rises from faking his death, and states that he faked the attack on Aerie, that the god's power doesn't work on him because he comes from a time before the god made a contract with Bravely Sword, the Sword of the Brave. The shadow then incapacitates Oblivion, and then identifies itself as the Pope. At the Temple of Wind, Edea is wearing Agnes's pendant when it begins to glow. Aerie demands that the Pope explain itself. It states that it is a manifestation of the laws of the world, and that those who disturb the laws of the world must be expunged. After failing to kill the duo with Orthros, the Pope states that in order to ensure the world's survival, the world must repeat again. A bright light envelops everything, and each of the Vestals can be seen reacting to it. As the player awakens, Aerie introduces herself to them as a Christ Fairy.